Hello guys, my name is Cromwell and welcome once again in my new video, and we'll talk about some of the best non-premium moneymakers out there. And trust me, I'll do my best to help you with this problem thanks to my amazing win rate. And obviously I do not have all of the tanks myself, so sometimes I'll turn to get some help from my friends with even better win rates. Some of the people won't get the joke, will they? Anyways, this list is going to be highly dependent on your, or in this case my opinion. The tanks you are going to see aren't necessarily going to be the best for you. They are just a few options amongst many that I found useful. I myself found useful. Your playstyle might differ. Your preference of stats might differ, and thus your favorites might differ as well. Me not including your beloved Talk 2, no, Talk 2 won't be found on this list, doesn't necessarily mean that I deemed it completely useless. It just means that I found our tanks to be a bit better for making money, or a bit better for the purpose of this video. Anyways, let's start this list with the OI and the OI Experimental. What? Did you really expect that this list would do without these two beach freaking whales? Well, whatever, I forget the third one. These two tanks are a primary example of what I've been talking about up till now. You can choose either the first one or the second one, each bringing you a bit different experience from each other. The Tier 5 OI Experimental offers you mediocre mobility with 12 horsepower ton ratio and rather alright ground resistances that are surprisingly a bit too similar to those of M4 Shermans. If you want something to compare this mobility to, it moves a bit faster than most, actually almost all heavies, and roughly just as fast as the Sturzwang M42, which is pretty good regarding its weight. This obviously makes this tank an amazing rammer. The armor on the other hand kind of sucks, at least in comparison to its speed. It has 75mm of frontal armor, 70 at the side and 70 at the rear. That is just about enough to block high explosives, but that's about where the range of its effectivity ends if it comes to blocking, unless you meet someone that will focus your lower plate with a penetration lower than 105. And lastly, you can get the 300 alpha damage gun. This gun has an alright penetration of 130, meh accuracy of 0.39 and pretty great DPM of 1877, at least considering that it has 300 alpha. This is actually pretty damn great DPM. Your second gun that you can pick is the 360 alpha damage gun, which is overall worse, and I personally do not understand why so many unicums are playing with it, and the only sensible reason how I can explain seeing so many unicums playing with it is the ridiculous look of it. Just look at this teeny weeny little donger. Secondary stats such as, I don't know, view range, gun depression and potential damage per battle are pretty great as well. But then we will see its counterpart, the OI, which is far less overall mobile, making it a total slug in the battlefield. Take Mouse as an example of what it looks like. Actually, Mouse is even a bit faster, approximately 10% faster. However, this tank has 150mm of frontal and rear armor and 100mm of side armor to compensate for that lack of mobility. This armor was left unchallenged by anyone since its release around the end of 2013, and the lack of any frontal weak spots at all doesn't help it at all. Lastly, you can pick that 700 alpha damage gun, but using those AP rounds would be nothing but an insult to the Imperial Japan. Use the potatoes instead, just make sure you won't miss because you will have to suffer 30-second long penalty for missing. Gameplay is rather simple. Unfair whale when frontline. The fourth tank is going to be the Panzerkampfwagen 4 aus H. This beauty with miniskirts hanging all around her definitely deserves her spot, as this is the tank with the highest AP round DPM. But again, just as with the OI, using them would be an insult, but now to the Third Reich instead of Imperial Japan. Instead of the 350 alpha damage AP shots, use the 410 alpha damage high explosive shots, which have only 10 less penetration. But the main priority, the main reason why you wanna be using those high explosive rounds is to maximize the DPM, because you have only about 8 seconds long reload that you can get down to about 6 seconds with good enough equipment and good enough crew. This is possibly the fastest derp gun reload you can find out there in the entire game. But did I mention that this is a German derp gun? Most likely not. Well, I shouldn't have started with that, as it means nothing to this tank, with its accuracy surpassing the 0.5 mark. The speed of this tank is most certainly faster than that of our previous two picks, however, it isn't all that amazing. It is still a medium tank, not a light tank, you know? It features 17 horsepower to ton ratio and a decent ground resistances, again, dangerously similar to the ones you can find on the OI Experimental. Lastly, the armor is pretty bad. It may be showing you rather decent 80, 30, 20 stats, but upon a closer inspection in the model viewer, you may spot that the 20mm of a rear armor affect most of its frontal armor as well, meaning that most of the same tier tanks can overmatch you frontally. And that is nothing good at all, trust me. And the side skirts, well, they might not be all that thick, but they detonate potatoes on touch. And since they detonate before contacting with your tank, you'll be hit only with a reduced portion of the original damage. This obviously doesn't prevent you from getting detracked. The overall stats of this tank are again kinda decent. 360 view range, 8 degrees of gun depression, simply decent. The third tank on this list is this flat to the left piece of Stellenwood, and I'm actually surprised by how many points it earned in my rating compared to the last year's list. Well, previously I've been actually ranking its 450 alpha damage gun, which is quite useless to be honest, but now I start ranking its tier 7 gun, which at the first sight looks kinda meh. Pretty low alpha damage of 180, not all that amazing penetration of 144, and not even the DPM looks TD-ish. By the way, some Illuminati struck again, because it has exactly as high DPM as the OI Experimental. Me not understanding this witchcraft. But the secret isn't hidden in its regular AP rounds. It's hidden in its HE rounds. Like, yeah, the APs aren't all that bad, but I recommend you to not use them all that much. Go for the good old 50-50 strat. If you see some spare iron, fire APs, but once you see something that you can penetrate with your regular AP shells, load in the skill rounds. Just kidding. Ravage the potato farm just the way Stellan did during the Second World War. This is where the truth, the success of this tank lied all along. The Poland. Well, unlike most of the tanks, which would have their HE damage going up to probably 250, the Su-85's HE shell damage rises up all the way to 300 for some reason. That's completely amazing. You'll get over 3000 DPM with nothing more than 100% trained crew. No skills, no equipment, nothing. It's just amazing. And the best thing about it, that's not all. This tank is one of the most accurate low tier tanks with only 0.33 gun dispersion. With that you can kill those bloody wankers camping the enemy base, while camping your own base. This leaves you with plenty of time to train your wrist by, well, you know. But guess what? The bishops are lurking in your neighborhood as well. So in order to save you from some sudden creepy old fuck's molestation, you get plenty of mobility as well. 17 horsepower to ton ratio with not so good ground resistances, but still, the 17 HP to ton ratio allows you to move faster than majority of the tanks you might find yourself being matched up or against on a battlefield. However, this tank is not exactly a Russian medium, so it cannot have all three major stats above the average, so yeah, its armor sucks quite a bit. Yeah, it can do something, but relying on it is like saying I wanna kill myself. What if this tank is like a World of Tanks equivalent of Mr. Meeseeks? But now back to the armor. It might be well angled, but all that the angling helps to is to make a better slide out of that frontal plate. However, can't say that the driver complains about that. Yeah, show me your panties. The fourth tank on this list is gonna be the champion of my previous list, the Nashorn. Germans surely got no idea how to name their tanks, do they? Like seriously, they named the biggest tank ever constructed a mouse. But the tank that's pretty much just a gun with wheels is goddamn Rhino. Like, what? Why? If somebody yelled Rhino, I'd expect seeing something like this. But Germans came out with a tank with paper thin armor and called it a Rhino. For Christ's fucking sake, its armor is nearly completely useless. 30 armor at max all around, but it kinda balances itself out with its speed, no? Nah, 12 horsepower to ton ratio is only mediocre for TD at this tier, and it doesn't have some amazing ground resistances, so it is overall pretty damn slow. But guess what? This little shit is like a freaking unicorn with its gun. It pierces through literally anything you can find with its astonishingly high 203 penetration. Hell, I'd be alright with having this penetration at a tier 8, let alone a tier 6. Like, what the fuck is this shit? And what is it doing at a tier 6? Well, I can answer myself that. Ravaging my win rate. Well, other than its penetration, this gun gives you 240 alpha damage with a pretty decent reload speed, giving the third highest DPM out of all lower tier tanks. Technically second, right behind the Flat Panzer. And lastly, it has the most accurate tier 6 gun on par with the Achilles and the ATA. This gun is by far one of the best tier 6 guns that you may find, dominating in all three most important stats for a gun that are out there. Sadly, that's all the tank has, a gun. It has no armor, no speed, and no camo. Not even the view range is somehow good. It simply is worthless in every single possible way but the gun. So if you like MPTDs with very little to no actual frontline fighting prowess, so Berserk, S-Tanks, etc, the Nashorn is gonna be the best one for you. And lastly, the number one thing on my list, the best non-premium moneymaker out there is the M44. Yes, the number one thing is actually an artillery, but you can be happy that I placed only one artillery on this list. I rarely broke my almighty rules and decided that it will be better not to fill this list entirely with artilleries. Because seriously, since the artillery is buff of annoyingness, the top 5 actual spots were taken by the M44, Bishop, Hummel, FV304 and the MX-13 F3AM. So I think you understand why I decided to break the rules and place only the best one out of the bunch on the number 1 spot. Either way, it's kind of unsurprising that the M44 ranked itself amongst the top 10. It is by far the strongest low tier artillery since the FB fattening and the shrekkening of the Leffy done by the 9.18. Why is that? Well, it's neither one of the fast firing low alpha artilleries nor one of the heavy hitting super long reload artilleries. This means that it isn't hitting for jack diddly shit nothing unless you won't penetrate, and at the same time you can still one shot from time to time. Not to mention the fact that this is one of the most accurate artilleries out there. This RT is without any doubt one of the best tier to tier RTs in the entire game. Oh, and did I mention that the speed is looking more like a baguette in a disguise? No? Well, it does look like that. If you ever see this thing against you, be prepared that once you kill all of the enemies on one flank, there won't be any artillery waiting for you in the middle of the enemy's cap circle like a cherry on top of a cake. But instead, get ready, raise your shield because the rain is coming as that little shit run away to the next fucking galaxy. Either way, that's all I had prepared for you for today. Because seriously, if I wanted to extend this list by any more, I would probably extend it only by a couple of artilleries. So I think it's better to not to extend this list by artilleries, don't you think? Either way, this is gonna be the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope that I'll see you next time as well. Bye.